Hey, welcome everybody. I welcome you in this episode of Coach APM's Expert Talk Show. In this talk show, we always bring experts from different fields who give you a career advice which are not only actionable, but they're also strategic considering your career. And the aim is to make you grow to your fullest potential. So today, the topic which we have shortlisted for this discussion is how to shape your career journey. And to discuss on this topic, we thought of many people, and then we decided, okay, let's bring somebody who has not only grown in career but also is like a multi-dimensional personality. So we decided, and we have with us Ranjini Sachin. Ranjini, welcome in this show. Okay,
Thank you, Ajay. So good to be here this
great.
afternoon. Really nice.
Great, Ranjini. So Ranjini is passionately associated with PwC India as a director, and she always mentions about being a proud mother of a 17-year-old daughter, and she's a loving wife. So I thought why Ranjini is a great choice for this, because we always want to have people who are multidimensional, who grow in different field, not only in like one direction. So that's why we have Ranjini with us. Great. So Ranjini, there are a lot of things to discuss. And I'm sure many people who are watching it live right now, or many people will be watching it after its recorded version is available there for them to consume. So we are live on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as on YouTube. So all the viewers who are watching it right now, feel free to please give your comments or whatever questions you have got in the chat box so that we can pick it. Even if you're watching it later, you can still put your comments, and I'm sure Rajni will be answering them as and when she gets hold of them.
I
Great.
will.
So
I will do my best, indeed.
great. So Ranjini, let's begin with the very first thing. Before even talking about the career journey, I would like you to talk about a typical pitfalls which people have, in the sense the mistakes which they commit while defining their career, or even not defining, just going just like that. So what are the typical observations you would like to mention? I know it's a little typical question suddenly I give to you, but just think about it and please go
No,
ahead.
that's yeah, no, absolutely. Well, why not begin from that, right? Probably, people get
Yeah,
things wrong. So my own learning from what I've seen,
yeah.
um, picking up a career where you know it's not right for you, but because of for some reason you believe it's pressure, maybe. Uh,
Hmm.
I don't know where the pressure could come from, various reasons, and
Yeah,
and you probably make a choice, which is then you realize not right for you at all, and you
yeah,
hate yourself for making that choice
yeah.
for the
Yes,
rest of
please.
your
Yeah.
career. Number one. I think the second one is really start, to compare yourself with somebody else. I see that happening time and again, where
Hmm.
you don't realize your own journey could have been very different. When you peak and trough is very different.
Hmm.
When you sometimes accelerate and learn a lot more versus when you don't is very different. So
Hmm.
I've seen time and again people saying, "Wo mera batchmate tha, I think
Yeah. Yeah.
he's done this, he's done better," or it's fine. I think, but that's the problem because once you start comparing somewhere you don't actually give yourself the credit that your journey is different from somebody else.
Correct.
And especially as a woman, I've seen that I've maybe had a few extra years over some of my other colleagues, but it never bothered me. And I
Hmm.
always realized that I had taken the time for something else, and that's all right. It was a choice I made. So
Hmm.
which is why it's important that it has to be your journey. I think
Hmm.
comparing it makes it a little difficult.
Got it.
Maybe the third one is more in hindsight of what I have seen, and especially more recently, right? When we jump, the reason when we make a jump could be multifold. Sometimes you make it for a bigger role, you make
Hmm.
it for money,
Hmm.
you make it for a location, you make it because your spouse or somebody is moving. So there are various reasons why you make a jump and why you make a move.
Hmm. Hmm.
Some of them within your control, some of them not. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
okay. But those which are within our control, right? If you just jump for the sake of it without thinking about why you're making that jump, what is it that
Hmm.
you want to get out of it?
Yeah.
That could be quite a costly. I don't want to call it a mistake, but then you may not really know what value that's going to bring for you if you're just
Yes.
making the jump for the
Yes.
sake of it. So
Yes.
really putting in some thought into when you're making that jump is probably the
Hmm.
right thing to do. But these are the three, maybe top three that
Hmm.
comes to mind when I think of people and their careers.
Got it. So you talked about compassion. You talked about making a very deliberate attempt while choosing. What's the first one? I think I missed that point. What's the first one? Okay.
Never, No, I think the first one when I started was the making the choice under pressure rather than for yourself,
Got it.
right?
Got it.
Maybe your lifelong vision has been that you want to be a photographer and you really
Mhm.
would like to specialize in it, but for whatever reason, and
Yes.
this is probably I don't see it much in this next generation, but probably in the generation where we were, it was always quite, and it still was, right? Maybe the doctor
Mhm.
engineer thing became slightly bigger, but it
Yeah.
still stayed. So,
Got it.
so that choice is then something you question all your life.
Yes, yes. So just to summarize for everybody, I think that the very important point is that your journey is unique, as Ranjani mentioned, that you might be in the chapter one of your book, somebody would be in the chapter eight. So don't compare both the chapters. Everybody has got a very different upbringing and different responsibilities. So journey is unique. So just enjoy the journey, go with your own flow, and while making choices, be what to say, uh, you need to deliberate on that. Just don't go for it just because it came to you. Okay, so sometimes in the act of desperation, you will have to choose, but just be a little bit thoughtful about it, right? So that's the point. Got it. And what do you think? What really worked for you, Ranjani? What really clicked, that you could find a satisfactory career, life, personal life? I know ups and downs would be there always. Nothing is perfect, but what really worked?
No, true. You're right. There are ups and downs, and I think there are choices. Each one, we make, and so what has worked for me? Okay, I think number one, early days when I just finished. I got married very early, Ajay. As you know, I think I was married by the time I was 23. So early on in my career, and my husband was already in the UK, so he said, just move. Um, I don't think I took it for granted that I would, I knew it was tough. I would have to
Mm,
really get to know a new market, really figure out how I would establish myself and build credibility in a new area. It was a tough ask, and equally, I think thing that worked for me was my husband was very supportive and said, "You're definitely not sitting home.
mm,
Even if we just go out in the market and see what they're asking for. If you need to pick up on some education here, let's do that." So I
mm,
think for him, so I think I had that support from the
mm,
beginning. I think
mm,
that early part it's very important because later on in life, now I don't, he can only probably say something as advice. Beyond that, it's a choice I make. But then
yeah.
early on, I do appreciate that there was that willingness in him to say, no, you've got to do this, or you've got to study, and I'm happy to support you with it. So I think I had
Mm,
that support to begin with.
very nice. Yeah.
The second thing that worked well for me was, like I said, I think I was always very passionate that I had to have a career. I had to figure
Mm,
this out. No
mm,
matter that I'm making a move, a shift, I'm going to
yeah.
make this happen. And I remember, I was at one point studying. I'd had my daughter, and I had a job. So it was a tough
Mm,
few years that point in time when we were trying to do it all. But like I said, I think my husband's support was important. My
yeah.
mother then also was a critical person who helped me raise my daughter. So I think the second lesson for me is it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to take support. You
Mm,
need to, because you're not going to do this on your own.
mm, mm,
And if you try and do this on your own, I think you'll carry the guilt.
yeah.
Because I don't, I feel my mother being there for me in those early years, I didn't feel Nirvana needed, she was without support. So I think it's okay to ask for that help and support because
Mm,
later on in life you'll be able to somewhere it squares up. So it's
yes.
good. Please leverage that support. Don't feel
Yeah.
hindered
Yeah.
towards.
Yes.
Go after what you want. I think that was I never ever second judged myself in terms of saying, okay,
Mm,
Raj, this is what you would
mm,
like to do.
mm, mm,
Go away and ask, and maybe up, and when I applied for something, I think I always did it with a lot of diligence. That
mm,
meant I did my research, I did my planning, and like I said, I
mm,
followed the same advice I've seen. I never did a jump for the sake of it. It was always a very planned, a very
mm,
thought through approach to what I wanted
mm,
to do. So
mm,
even if I was applying and I realized, okay, I've done recruitment for a bit, I want to get into operational HR,
mm,
what do I
mm,
need to do? If
mm,
somebody's
mm,
going to hire me for that role, what do
mm,
I need to build? I think I've
mm,
always done my research, and I think that's the second piece. So ask for help being one. Do your research before
mm,
wanting to jump, making the jump, and how you do the jump as well. Going into
mm.
an interview without having thought it through is
Yeah.
absolutely detrimental. It's not
Mm,
going to.
mm, mm,
And the third thing, I think a little bit of luck. I have to I have to believe in life. Hard work pays off, but there is also that element of right things happening for you at the right time.
mm, mm.
You have to end up at that right job interview. You have to sit across a table from somebody who recognizes the value you bring.
Correct.
So I think somewhere I'm grateful that that also happened at the
Yeah.
right time. I
Yeah.
think, and because of that too, I've done that move twice. Right, I
Yeah.
moved from
Yes.
India to the
Yes.
UK, and
Yeah.
then
Correct.
back from after 13 years UK to India. So it was
Yeah.
establishing myself twice around. But I think, yeah, little bit of luck has, with that hard work and diligence, paid off.
That played role, right? A very well summarized, I would say. So, see, something which is not in our control, like you talk about luck or like fortune clicking in. So probably that is not in our control. That is something which is beyond control. So our responses to like what you rightly mentioned, that ask for help. And I think specifically if you talk about women, and even if our viewers, many of them would be men or women, so irrespective of that, you would have family members, you would have wife, you would have sister or
Absolutely.
mother working right somewhere. So you need to just support them. So what I like what you mentioned is that it's not only that somebody is upfront in giving you support. Even if you're not getting it upfront, go and ask for it. And yeah, so and not necessarily always family members. Sometimes it could be your colleagues, it could be your friends, it could be anybody, right?
Very true, Ajay. You're right. There are days my neighbors would have stepped in, right, for
Mm.
something.
Yeah.
I remember even very recently, we had to get Nirvana picked up. I was at work, Sachin was traveling, was in Dubai, and it was one of my neighbors who just went and picked her up. So I think you're right. It's not, it's about, you need an ecosystem, you
Yes.
need people to support you. And to the other point as well, to the men on the call, please do ask for your support, but also support your sisters, your mothers, your, girlfriends, spouses, whoever they are. I think you owe it
Yeah.
to them. It's a it work it's seamless. Both of you have to
Yes.
work together.
Correct. So nice point, very nice. And you mentioned about being passionate, and this is my belief that once your why is very strong, why in this in WHY, once your why is very strong, how is taken care of somehow. Okay, so yeah. So you once you decide that okay, I need to do this, and I have seen in case of my sister, I have got two elder sisters. So one of the sisters, she was very talented. She is still very talented, but she decided to settle because family had my family is quite progressive, but still there were some thoughts process typical. So she didn't move out much. She just did a bit of it and she moved out. And thankfully, she's also flourishing in her own family life. But other sister, she took a call and she was little adamant in what she wanted to do. And then whole thing started shaping up. My father only supported her to make her stay in one of her friend's house when she moved out of Kanpur for the first time. Today, she has a great career in ONGC. She has been there for almost like 15, 16 years now. She's leading HR there. So great to see this that once your passion is there, things are taken care of. So don't think on that something will happen and then I will do it. So it's not like that you need to lit the fire to lit the fire. It's not like give me wood, give me fire, then I will put wood. It's not like that, right? So you need to just balance it out. Great,
No.
nice, nice. I think it's a good advice and do your research. So
And in fact, it just reminded me of, when you said, there was a joke that somebody forwarded to me saying that all of these, the modern independent women are actually only able to survive because of their uneducated maids at home. And again, I say it's not a joke. You have to take very good care of them too, because that is so true.
yes, yes,
Your whole ecosystem at home will not
yes,
sustain if you don't
yes.
have their support. So I am very grateful for them also. So
Mm,
the ecosystem, it goes beyond family. I'm just saying
yeah,
it's them too, and you have to appreciate that is what they bring to the table. So yeah, I
right,
know.
right.
So, yeah, I thought it was a
Yeah.
very pertinent piece to
Point. No,
impart.
no, this is a very pertinent point. That like we are working, they are also working. Okay, that this is their workplace, right? So just honor that and respect that work as well. So very nice. So if you talk about research field, I would like to dwell more on it, Ranjini. That what are the typical ways in which you would have researched for any job opportunities you got? How what
Sure.
were your uh, parameters to judge them?
Okay. Um, so, look, I think we were born in the world of Google. I think that was a privilege we've all had, right?
Yeah.
Unlike our predecessors, where access to information was not what it used to be.
Mm.
So now, when I go into it, I think there isn't anybody who can actually go into a call saying, "I didn't know about the company, I don't know about the P&L, the balance sheet, I don't understand how they're making money, or what is it, what are the problems, were they in the news recently."
Mm.
Some of the current, macroeconomic challenges. What are some of the economic challenges happening within that particular sector for that
Mm.
organization?
Mm.
So when I talk of research these days, you have so much of information at your fingertips. So I
Mm.
think it would be remiss of any candidate to turn up without having done that research. Clearly,
Mm.
I mean,
Mm.
I wouldn't hire somebody myself if that
Mm.
basic understanding is not there, and that too
Mm.
when it's publicly available.
Mm.
So that's sort of clearly what I do is actually research the company itself. Once I've decided, I
Mm.
think me, I'm very set in the function. I know the area I've worked in for a long time, and I've loved doing it. So that the learning of that the functional area comes from me regularly. As consultants, you really have to know a lot more. You read, you understand, and you know a lot more about other areas as well, because
Mm.
it's important. But the organization itself, if I'm applying for somebody, there might be lots of nuances that I don't know.
Mm.
Every sector is different, and every sector's challenges are different, and especially what's happening with them under the circumstances. So when you go to an interview, the it's important. So from a career choice point of view, I think how that connects back is when you know you want to do it, you've got to do
Yeah.
your research and go with
Yeah.
it.
Correct. Correct.
And that is when the step up is you make it, whether the step it's a step up or it's a parallel step. That's also different, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I might be moving at the same level in a different sector
Mm.
because I want to
Mm.
learn something new,
That's
or
right.
I might be moving into a new function. So depending
Mm.
on what you're doing, your research has to be around that. You
Mm.
need you can, even if you're new to it, again, there's no excuse. Let's say I'm in human resources, and I want to pick up a role in finance, a completely different view, but I'll still try and see where are the overlaps. Is there something in payroll that I can bring to the table? Is there something in
Mm.
taxation that I can talk about? Is there something in billing and financing or my time booking? So the idea, and I know I'm going into the tactical pieces, but the idea is very simple. Even if I'm applying for a role in a different function because I want to learn, then do your research, know the basics, and say, listen, I'm here to learn. I will
Mm.
pick up on the job. I've done it in the past. I understand this is what the area is, but maybe I don't know the nuances. So I think it's also important to be honest about
Yeah.
what you're good at with yourself, as well as
Yeah.
where your gaps are. And
Yeah.
if you're not, anyway, it's going to be something that the organization is going to know. So
Mm.
you might as well be open and honest about it.
No, it's wonderful point that you need to be very honest to yourself that what you know and what you don't know, and what you don't know, if that is required, you need to know that, and there are enough of resources available in today's time to go through
Absolutely.
that. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
So
no
I see that.
excuse.
Sorry, Ranjini, go ahead.
No, I said there's no excuse for turning up and saying, having absolutely no clue,
Correct.
because research and intent has to come out quite clearly.
Perfect. So now what I see, if and correct me if I'm wrong, probably if I'm just trying to recall, you were in consulting, then you moved to technical side of it. Was it a complete domain change for you? It was a deliberate, or I'm not right here. So just if you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure. No, I think so. Okay, I started off. I did my engineering, Ajay. That's where we were classmates,
Yeah. Yeah.
batchmates rather. And so obviously, I started off as an electrical engineer, but I was very
Mm.
clear. And then the first job, I made it very clear to the people who came on campus that listen, while I'm interviewing for the role here in sales and marketing sort of a space, I really would like to explore the people side of things,
Yeah.
and learn. And they said, okay, why don't you just come get started, and we'll think of how we can then make the transition happen. We'll get you to talk to the CHRO and see if that is a doable piece. So I said, yeah, that sounds good. And that's exactly how I started it. So I think I started with some amount of sales and marketing, which was a good thing. I don't think I ever, it was a good, you really want to understand an organization and, what the pulse is. Business development is important. Then I worked in human resources, but then that's how the domain shift happened early. But then
Mm.
what happened after I got married? So like I said, literally within a year of that, had to move to the UK. Their
Mm.
problem was they were like, well, you're an engineer and
Ah.
you've got about a year and a half of HR here. This is a
Yeah.
very,
Yeah.
what do we do with uh,
Correct. Correct. Yeah.
and I think that is where I said, okay, that's fine. Let me go and study my master's. Let me do my master's in human resources. And there it was called the Chartered Institute of Personnel Development, CIP.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm.
I started doing that. And I picked up a job within recruitment. So you're right. Here is where the domain shift happened. And I had
Mm.
to re-establish myself in a space where I didn't have. So I
Mm.
studied. And I think I
Mm.
studied. And with that, I did a job. And eventually I got the first break within the human resources function. But then that was it. So then, for the next about 5.5 years, I sort of learned the function in human resources. But I gradually realized tech-driven transformation was something that I really enjoyed, and I
Mm.
started that exposure happened somewhere when my then company EDF Energy, they had just acquired British Energy, and they were going through a massive ERP. SAP implementation,
Mm.
and I
Mm.
got the first flavor of, oh, this is interesting. I like it. I like the system side of it, and it was
Yeah.
easy the transition because I had a tech background. Somewhere I had HR, human resources, people, and it was a very convenient kind of an area for me to move into. And I
Hmm.
thought I learned again. So then I
Hmm.
again went back into seeing, oh, what are the different technologies? What are the challenges in technologies? How is the
Hmm.
technology implemented? What are the key
Hmm.
decisions? So then I
Hmm.
spent that next part again learning some of the technology components, complementing it with the human resources
Hmm.
experience I had. And then that's how eventually it became technology driven transformation, change
Hmm.
adoption. It all
Hmm.
sort of fell into place
Hmm.
after that. But yeah, I think that's where it's been a constant back and forth. It's not just been a one area. I think I've
Hmm.
really enjoyed the journey and identified what I have enjoyed more, and
Yeah.
kind of made my way through it.
Correct. So there's some amount of secondary research before you take a decision, and then when you get into that, then spend some good time to just explore that. Don't take a premature call that you are liking it or not liking it. So exploration is very important, right? Yeah.
Very true, very true. Because yeah, and again, that's where a bit of luck that sometimes it lands on your plate, sometimes
Yeah.
you go after it. You may
Yes.
have
Yes.
seen your other colleague working on it, and you're like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
actually, I find that very interesting. I would like to consider that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But sometimes it just lands on your plate. You're part of the team, and they say, hey, we're implementing a new system. Ranjini,
Yeah.
you need to get your act together, learn about this. And early on in your career, you're excited and you learn.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're right. But sometimes it may not work out like that. You may
Mhm.
realize somebody else is doing it, but that's okay. Then you actually speak to that person,
Absolutely.
spend
Absolutely.
time with the leaders there and the functions, and you understand, and that is also okay.
Yes, absolutely. If I can even talk about one instance that after BTech, I worked for 3 years and went for MBA. And after MBA, the second job which I took, that job was quite good. The company was quite good, and that was into digital marketing back in 2009-10. It was a new thing. I was really enjoying that US-based company, a lot of opportunities and all. That time only I started thinking about starting my company. Exactly the same thing what I'm doing today. At that time, there was a kind of a trade-off. If I go for this, what say, option, I will lose this option. And at that time, I decided to go for this option only because the company was doing quite good and I was enjoying the learning. But after like almost 10 years from that day, then I started the company 2017, almost 7 years after that. I started the company, same concept, same everything. But now I think I was more learned and more experience to give to the people what I wanted to give at that time. So I think things take time. Exploration is really required. Whenever you feel you are ready, you can go for it. And
And which is very true, Ajay, and which is why I was saying, that whole jumping for the sake of it within 6 months may
hmm,
not always be the right thing, because you may not have even explored it enough to
yes,
really know it.
yeah,
And again, there's no harm in jumping. So, for example, in the UK, I was telling you, after I did my 5 years, the last few years, I did contracting. And there I
hmm,
purposely did contracting because they were 6 month to a year long stints, but you learned so much. You're thrown into the deep end. Of course, you
yeah,
make a lot more money. But
yeah,
the idea was here, I knew I was going in for 6 months or
hmm,
for a year contract. So
yeah,
the reason for doing it was very driven in terms of saying, I want to build that exposure in technology projects, and I'm
yeah.
going to do it like this.
So
So
now, please, sorry, sir, go ahead, go ahead.
no, so I was just sort of completing that point that make that choice about jump. It has to be right for you. Make sure you've spent
Hmm,
sufficient time in a place to know what's right for you or it isn't.
correct.
And then if you've made a choice to say I want to do a short project, a short
Hmm,
stint, so be it.
hmm.
We see so much of the gig economy happening and people choosing to do it, which is also fine.
Which is good. So we are talking about jumping from one company or one job to other. Let's talk about the very pertinent point of Great Resignation time, right? 2000. So I saw like many people were resigning in India like last year, and then we were talking to somebody in US, and then he told that it's not only specific to India; it's all over world. So something has, there are multiple reasons. People have their own hypothesis or some research work also that why it happened like that. People realize their true calling or maybe whatever you call it. So many people resigned, joined different companies or started something on their own. Uh, what do you have any opinion on that? Means I would like to hear your point of view.
Sure. Uh, yeah, we've all experienced great resignation in different ways, right? I have female colleagues who made that choice because it was just getting too much
Hmm.
and they weren't able to cope. So, I mean, like I said, I think for me, great resignation, there were multiple reasons that it happened. And I'm just going to call out all of them because I think all of them are important. They, of course, culminated into what we saw was just a fallout, right?
Yeah.
Massive fallout, and all organizations grappling, salaries going to a level where it was not sustainable,
Yes,
and people just jumping for the sake of it. But there were also lots of valid reasons. Like I said, lots of women who just said, "I can't sustain this. I'm going to take some time off. I need to do
mm,
this."
mm,
For the sake of my family. I think there was also a lot of, we saw bereavement, and I think people emotionally dealing with things, different people deal with the different things in different ways. And I think
mm,
that also made people make some sudden life choices, saying, I'm going to do it. And that those life choices again was, I'm going to do this now. I wanted to
yeah,
start a business. I'm going to do this now. I think it kind of, you look into the mirror and you're thinking this, I have to do this now. I'm not going to sit and procrastinate anymore and
yeah,
think about doing this later. This
yeah,
has to be done now. So I think that kind of probably made a bit of a difference. Then we saw technologies, all the gig economy, right? There's so many platforms where you can apply for short-term work. So I
mm,
think many people saw the flexibility of working in those shorter hours rather than a full-time role that is being
mm,
traditionally
yeah,
we've seen.
yeah,
So again, I think that came into play. And look, so there are so many reasons why I think, and then suddenly the main reason, and especially because we saw this in the tech world, every organization realized those who were able to sustain the remote working well were those who had a very stable system, who were digitally enabled, technology enabled, had good
mm,
data insights, and they were able to work remotely.
mm,
That is when those who did not have it realized the importance of it. So even though we were
mm,
already on a digital transformation journey, if you think about many organizations across,
yeah, mm,
wherever we, a lot more immediately sort of put, said more fuel, just pushed it on and said, let's get this done right now. We can't
yeah,
wait. So
yeah,
I think it accelerated the need to bring in technology. And what
mm,
that meant was all of the people in technology became in demand. And,
mm,
and now they had the flexibility of working from anywhere, whenever they wanted, short-term projects, being
mm,
paid crazy amounts.
mm,
And
mm,
this added to the mix along with that startup entrepreneurial sort of fire that we
mm,
saw.
mm, mm,
This added to it as well. So I'm not surprised that that happened,
yeah,
because technology had to come into play. Otherwise,
mm,
none of the organizations who didn't really struggled.
absolutely,
So, which is
absolutely.
why, so my thoughts on Great Resignation is simple. I don't think that it was basic. You think it was very factual. It was very driven by certain decisions people made.
Mm, mm,
Fallout we all dealt with. I think those who stayed back really picked up the pieces, and it was quite stressful for those who did as well.
mm,
But then we also saw a lot of research coming out about how people who stayed back with the organization stayed back because of purpose and values.
yeah,
And we've seen that time and again. I've seen those who decided to stay back, who stayed with the companies because they believed in what the
yes,
company did,
yeah,
or they
yeah,
believed in the leaders. They
yeah,
stayed back because they really believed in the. So, but yeah,
absolutely.
that's my take on the Great Resignation.
No, you are so right that people who stayed in a company, either they got good growth opportunities or they believed in the leader. I remember that I got a luxury of working in MNCs like Adobe and CSC and Hindalco, as well as startups like Ground Truth. At that time, it was Exad. So that company was in like complete doldrums. So when I joined that company, it was completely in red. Okay, and today it is like more than $120 million company. So some of the colleagues who joined with me left in between, and I'm really thankful to that organization that made me not only learn but made me grow also as a human. So people used to ask me, what is making you stay in the company when you're seeing that company is just going down? Somewhere I felt that the leadership, the kind of stuff they were doing, the kind of steps they were taking, somewhere that was giving me belief that this company is going to grow. And barring everything else, I was enjoying that phase. So it was like my heart was there. So I just kept what is working for them and worked for them for almost 5 years. So that's a good point. And you know what? What typical observation with respect to Great Resignation is that typically there is a trend which people try to follow. In this particular time, the Great Resignation time, people didn't resign because everybody else is resigning. People had their own, what to say, thought process to take this step for different reasons. Though they weren't following a path; they were just following what they felt like it's right for them. Yeah.
No,
So that's
very
the
true, very true. Which is why, and that I think it happened with so many people, which is why it felt like, oh my God, everybody's leaving, but they were leaving for different reasons. Definitely different
correct. Yeah.
reasons.
Now this brings me to the next point is that let's say somebody is jumping or growing within the organization, so which I call advancing your career. So at every phase, like when we are moving to a new house or whatever, new relationship or anything, we try to have some checkpoints just to make sure that things are there. Okay, probably relationship is not a right to say category to get into, but typically for the job or for the career growth. So I would like to know from you what kind of a typical question should people ask or constantly ask themselves before advancing their career? What all typical questions they should think about and dwell more time on before taking a decision on advancing their career?
Such a it's a tough one, and the reason I say it's a tough one is it's very subjective, Ajay.
Yeah.
And we've all, when you look at corporates, all of us have our own succession
Mm,
planning approach.
mm, mm,
We already also have almost, the kind of tenure, the promotions. When somebody gets promoted, what's the process?
mm.
What are they
Yeah.
expecting? In some cases, they have a development center before they move from one level to another.
Yes, yes,
You
that's
actually
correct.
get your
Yeah. Mm,
certain, kind of almost telling you where you are in terms of your particular role, the current role, and potential against the next level. So I'll not go into that process. I think I'll talk about somebody who's not looking at the process itself, but as an individual who's looking at her
mm,
or his own career, right? Maybe the questions I'll ask myself is, number one, am I, if when I look at a colleague who's doing that next level role, do I see myself doing what they are doing? Am I
mm, mm,
already, when I compare myself in the job that I'm doing, am I able to deliver the same kind of revenue? Am I generating, the same kind of, do I bring in the same impact when I'm talking to people as that other person does? Am I able to bring in the same value and credibility when as the other person is doing? And kind of, exhibiting, if you like. I think, and then equally, the more importantly, if especially if it's a people management responsibility, if you're going from an individual contributor level to a manager contributor level, there's certain times in your life when those jumps are quite prominent.
mm,
So then the second question I ask is, do I have, am I committed into actually putting myself in that other person's shoes and sort of supporting somebody else in their career?
mm,
So I
mm,
think these are the kind of few questions, I would ask myself when I'm saying, am I ready to make that next move?
mm,
And
mm.
of course, the willingness. I have to have the appetite to do it. It's okay if you don't as well. That's why I was telling you the other day, Ajay, that I don't think there's no expert in career, right? But
Yes,
each of
yes.
us have our own. It's a blank sheet, and we've all painted it in different ways. Um,
Correct. That's right. Yeah.
if I were to think about that jump internally, and I have these comparators within the organization, these are the questions I would ask myself.
Mm. No, right. Great
Of
point. So
course,
now,
the last one, sorry, which my people manager. I think you have to, you've got sponsors in the organization, you've got your key people, your mentors in the organization. I think it's good to identify who they are and absolutely take their inputs all through your career,
mm,
because it helps. Of course,
mm,
you have to know, everything is there for a reason, and you've got to know how you leverage those relationships, whether it's a
mm.
coach, whether it's your
Yeah.
mentor, your people manager, your project managers. So make use of that ecosystem
Yeah.
and put all of these questions to yourself, and that's when you know.
Such a, I think, I would say significant point it is, Ranjani, and this is like coming at a point like what happened that I'm a student of Bear Singer. Okay, so I was going through a training 3 days ago, and he asked a question to us that he said that find out 7 instances in your life or 7 events in your life which, according to you, change the trajectory of your life. You might not be following that trajectory right now, but at that point of time, it changed the trajectory. And so I noted down all, though I had to scratch my head a bit after fourth event, but I could find out 7. And then he said that, okay, find out one common theme in all of them. Okay, and that was like that hit me so hard that I could find one common event that all the events could have turned out to be completely different if I would have gone out and sought people guidance. Okay, sometimes, yeah, sometimes when you are with the people who don't have knowledge in the field you want to grow, you feel like that you are self-sufficient and you can just take your own call. But that's not right. And now I feel that, okay, now I reach out to people to, like, for example, I reach out to you to talk about it, not thinking that, okay, I can talk about everything. So this is like a way you reach out to people to take their brain, understand that what they think, and then take a call based upon that. You might not agree to whatever suggestion people are giving to you, but that gives you a new path to at least experience. So very valid point, very, very valid point. I think people who are here, they should take a note of it that you need to discuss with people, ask their suggestions, take help, seek support. That's a beautiful aspect.
And maybe again, just as a woman, I have seen many young female colleagues of mine who talk to me, right? They do find it quite difficult to go out and seek that mentorship or that sponsorship. please do so. Please go and talk to the other senior women in your organization. People have gone through that journey. If you feel if you're not comfortable approaching some of the men, because again, and you shouldn't be worried about it. But I know I come from a place where I've seen it all. So I'm saying that go and reach out to the women, seek guidance, support. The more you do that, the more you actually hear from them. The more you actually, there's more confidence that builds in you. So seek out. Don't feel you're alone. And at any point in time, there are people. I've seen so many fantastic women leaders all my life, and very willing to support others and sort of help them come up and talk through the challenges that one has faced. So definitely go out and seek. And even for the men, and I don't want to. There are you have the, as you always know, Ajay. Those the two kinds, right? The talkative and the outgoing, and I'll not use the typical words that we would do, and those who choose not, who like to sit and do their own. It's okay. You can. There are so many senior men again and women who will be happy to support and guide you. It's not about going and having a chit chat. This is a more structured career conversation, and even if you find yourself as not being one of those overly social individuals, that's fine. When you seek somebody's support, you're saying, hey, listen, I really aspire to be somebody like yourself, and I want your guidance. I just want to talk to you, have a cup of coffee and understand your career journey. But go out and seek. I think it's always going to help.
Yeah. So that is coming out of, I think, almost every question we are discussing, that seeking help, asking for support, and even giving support, like these things are really basic, and that is going to be there forever. So always go out and seek support, and that is really going to help you out. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. I think that is a common theme which is coming out of all the answers, probably. That's a beautiful part. Great. So good. Anything, Ranjini, you would like to mention which I have not asked you, which I have not covered with respect to shaping career path? We talked about the decisions, passion, support, research. We talked about all the multiple dimensions to shape the career. We talked about the multiple mistakes that people commit. Anything, any point which you think I would have missed and you would like to mention that?
Maybe the only other, the piece that I kind of always leave people with, and as part of that, the conversation is, we all have a plan. We all sort of seek and aspire to do. There's always a plan A. But please be mindful that sometimes it's okay to digress into a plan B or C for a bit to get back to your plan A. And what I mean by that is, when I moved to the UK, going into recruitment was not a priority at all. It wasn't an area that was of interest to me. Having said that, it was what was needed for that particular time. It was what I had to do. It was almost taking a step back with the view that I can get back to plan A in a year, a couple of years. So all of you early on in your career, even later, it doesn't matter. You have to have the priority. Your plan A, you know what it is, but it's okay to go for a plan B and C to get into your plan A again, and make sure you've given yourself the permission to do so. Don't feel that, oh no, I didn't. It's okay. And sometimes, even like I was telling you, right, you want to be a photographer, maybe it wasn't your bread earning a job, but maybe you picked it up as a hobby and you did something with it. So I think all I want to sort of leave, Ajay, the last point here is that don't think of it as a linear thing. I'm going to go once. It could be a quite a squiggly
Exactly. Right.
path as you will.
Yes. Yeah. So this is one saying which I am just reminded when you are talking about, is that be fixated about your goal, not about the path. You might take a very different path to reach the same goal. So just be very fixated about the goal and flexible about the paths which you want to take. So very well summarized, Ranjini, and thanks a lot for all the inputs which you have given. And I see many of the answers were directly coming from your heart, and you just try to really relate the situation, give exactly the same example from your real life, what you are living or what you lived, and then try so that people can relate. I'm sure the people who want to take value out of it will definitely get it. And I welcome, or I will keep, asking you to come back in this talk show and keep sharing different dimensions of life.
No, happy to help, Ajay. Like I said, whatever I've learned, I'm grateful. I get the opportunity to share it with others, Ajay, because of you. So thank you for having me here, because it's not easy to give back to because if everybody hearing will take something away, and you hope it's going to benefit them. So thank you for having me. Very privileged, and wishing all of you on the call, or later when you hear this, the very best.
Thanks a lot, Ranjini, and have a great life, a great day ahead. Okay, take care.
Thanks, Ajay. Bye bye.